Yes, indeed. You know when you hear the Ohio, that you are not getting the sage from South Central. You are getting the mouth of the Northeast, I guess, or the Midwest, depends on what you want to call it. That's it. Greetings. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Bob France, and I am in kind of the Northeast, but I guess kind of the Midwest. We refer to ourselves as Heartland, but it just depends on how you view things. But we are not in Southern California. As a matter of fact, neither is Larry. Larry is down in the great Southwest. Larry is down in Dallas, Texas, getting ready for the premiere of Uncle Tom. As you know, that he's been discussing, of course, for the last several shows, and what a great accomplishment. It's an amazing thing, it really is, to be the executive producer of a movie, to get a movie made, to get a premiere like this, and have one that is so incredibly important to what's going on in this country at a time that could not have been better. I actually had Larry Elder on my program, and again, I am Bob France. My home base is Cleveland, Ohio, the rock and roll capital of the world, as it were, and AM 1420, The Answer. That is my home base, and I had Larry on my program this morning because I was sitting in for him tonight, obviously, and I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about his movie, about Uncle Tom. And, it's such an amazing accomplishment. And I told him, I said, Larry, you didn't plan it this way. I know, because a movie is many, many, many months, or in some cases, depending on the type of movie, years in the making. And so I know you didn't just start to put this thing together when George Floyd was murdered up in Minneapolis, and we were going to have racial tensions, if not outright race riots, from one end of this country to the other. And talking about the black experience in America was going to be as important as it is now. But sometimes, I don't know, if you just want to say God, if you want to say karma, if you want to say that, the stars align and things just come out at the right time, and it just worked out that way. So in the middle of all of this racial strife and all of this, division and all of the hate and all of the other stuff that's going on right now, all of the guilt that is being forced upon one race by advocates for another race, even for things that they haven't done, and most importantly for African Americans. And I know Larry hates that term. I talked to him off the air, and we talked about how. What am I saying off the air? He said that on the air during our interview this morning. So he hates the term African American. Talks to his Russian friend of his, or a friend of his. Where's your family from? What's your ancestry? Russia? How come you're not Russian American? How come you're not Euro-American? Why do we have to have Africa? So the hyphenated thing bothers Larry, so I won't offend him on his program by using it. So, but we were talking about how black Americans who are conservatives, just are not allowed to talk about this. And it's so frustrating. I got to tell you, it's so frustrating. As a white guy living and working in Cleveland, Ohio, I talk about race. I talk about truth. I talk about the truth behind the Black Lives Matter movement. And I don't mean just innocent people who are looking out for other innocent people and saying Black Lives Matter. That's fine, because I'll say that. Black lives absolutely matter. You want to know why? Because they're American lives, because they're human lives, and absolutely they matter. Just like white lives do, and Latino lives do, and Asian lives do, and Euro lives, and you name it. I have no problem with that. It's the organization of Black Lives Matter that is a different story altogether. So I talk about these things, and I bring truth to the airwaves each and every day in Cleveland. Larry brings it each and every night to the nation, or late afternoon if you're in Southern California right now, or in the West Coast. But, we bring these things, and I immediately get told, shut up, racist. If I quote statistics that Larry quotes, if I quote facts that prove that the African-American experience in America is not, there I did it, I offended Larry by saying African-American. I'm in the habit, sorry, it'll take a little time. If I talk about the black experience in America by the numbers that show that the thing that happened to George Floyd is so extraordinarily rare, if I talk about Ahmaud Arbery and the thing that happened to him that is so extraordinarily rare by the numbers, I'm told, shut up, racist. And so I look to Larry and I say, Larry, you got to tell it. You got to tell the numbers. You're as a minority, as a black man, you can say these things. But then come to find out that when Larry tells it, or Thomas Sowell tells it, or Walter Williams tells it, or younger leaders, African-American conservative leaders, I did it again, black leaders like Candace Owens tell it, or Dr. Ben Carson tells it, they're just told, shut up, Uncle Tom. That's, and a lot of, more horrible things that I won't say. So, I'm sitting here as a white guy saying, Larry, you got to tell them. Larry's saying, they don't listen to me either. Maybe they'll listen to all of us. Maybe the individual voices of the Larry Elders of the world and the Sowells and the Williams, and we can go on and on and on, a big list of strong, brilliant, intelligent, black American conservatives. Their voices individually are just silenced, and they're just told, shut up, Uncle Tom. So Larry put them all together in one place, in one 2-hour-long display of brilliance and courage, because it does. I'll tell you this. I've got to put on my big boy pants every day when I talk about this courageously. I know that people are being canceled for telling the truth. I know that companies are being canceled. I know that people are going for sponsors of people who tell the truth. So I've got to, I'm going to, a little self-pat on the back. It takes courage to come out here every day and say the things that I say, because I'm speaking truth. And I'm not just falling on bended knee to the rage mob. And I know it's hard for Larry too. Larry does it every day. And people like Larry, some of the names that I just mentioned, some of the older, more experienced voices of wisdom and reason, as well as some of the young flame-throwing voices like Candace Owens and others, it takes guts for them to say it too. It takes courage. And it took courage for Larry to put together 2 hours of courage, of speaking the truth about what is going on in this country and who is to blame for what is going on in this country. And by the way, there is no singular answer to that. There just is not, despite the fact that virtually everybody in media today and everybody in corporate America today that's got a product or a service to sell, they are essentially saying, yes, there is somebody to blame for this. White America is to blame. White America had instituted slavery, and white America was responsible for Jim Crow, and white America has been doing it ever since. Nothing has changed. Everything is still horrible. That's why they're tearing down history. And it's wrong. It is all wrong. The advances made in this country between the races, and particularly to lift up the black race in this country, as Larry has pointed out for one of the Prager University videos, it's been astounding. This is without question the greatest and most opportunistic nation on the face of the planet for a person with dark skin to live, to either grow up, be born in and grow up in, or to emigrate to. It is without question the greatest opportunity to not just survive, but to thrive on the face of this planet. And as Larry pointed out, I was watching Larry's Prager University video earlier today, as he pointed out, that includes every nation on the African continent. Every nation, including those run by people with dark skin, they cannot even come close to providing the opportunity that the United States of America does, even though we are sitting here calling ourselves a systemically racist country and shouting that out to the rest of the world. So, yeah, you can have an idea of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about in this program. This is it. It is not all, but that is a lot of it. And coming up in about 19 minutes, at 34 past the hour, I've got an opportunity that I really can't believe I'm gonna be able to participate in. I'm going to talk to one of my childhood football heroes growing up. I believe it was 1982, wasn't it? I think he was the 1982 Heisman Trophy winner. I got to double check my year. I think it's not 1982 because I was a high school freshman. The 1982 Heisman Trophy winner, one of the greatest running backs in the history of college football. His name is Herschel Walker. You know him. You know him from his amazing pro football career as well, and now he is an amazing voice of reason. As people and as anarchists from one end of this country to the other call for an abolition or a defunding of the police, Herschel Walker has invited all of them. He said he'll arrange the flights to fly everybody who doesn't like police to other countries where there are no laws and there are no police. Let us know how well that works out for you. Herschel Walker is going to discuss law enforcement in America as it pertains to race with us coming up at 34 past the hour. Again, my name is Bob France, sitting in for the great sage of South Central here on The Larry Elder Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way.
How do you expect me to talk over this? If you think I'm going to do anything except sit here and listen, and you've got to be crazy. Oh, my goodness. I love the bumper music on the Larry Elder Show, except for the fact that I just don't want to talk. I just want to listen. I want to be the DJ. I want to be the FM DJ I thought about being when I was in 7th grade, so I can just sit there and listen to music and get paid for it. Outstanding stuff. You know what else is outstanding, by the way, as we continue? Bob Brant's in for Larry Elder, 21 minutes past the hour. What's outstanding is MyPillow, and you have all helped to make MyPillow the amazing company that it is today. And now our friend, Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO of MyPillow, wants to give back to our listeners. You can get great discounts on all MyPillow products if you go to MyPillow.com right now. Click on the radio listener specials to see some amazing offers, including offering buy one, get one free on a variety of amazing products, including the Supima My Pillows, the Giza Dream Sheets, the My Pillow towels, the Roll and Go Anywhere pillows, the duvet covers, the Giza pillowcases, bolster pillows, neck pillows. Plus, if you buy Mike Lindell's book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO, you'll get free shipping and a $25 gift card. Just go to MyPillow.com and enter the promo code Larry or call 800-890-1843. Be sure to use the promo code Larry. MyPillow's answering the call for more face masks around the country as well as we continue to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, and they will be making face masks for hospitals across the country. Mike Lindell is a great, great American. Again, Bob Prance coming to you live from the ReliefFactor.com studios here in Cleveland, Ohio, and you heard the phone number, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. I'm going to ask you to help program the show a little bit tonight. I was talking to Sean, one of our producers, before the show, and I said, man, I just don't know where to go, because this is just a time in our lives where I could probably do a 3-hour show like the Larry Elder Show on one topic. We could talk about the Supreme Court and what they did with DACA and what they did to religious liberty and redefining the word sex in Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. We could do an entire show on those. We could certainly do an entire show on Black Lives Matter and on the racial unrest that's going on right now. We could do an entire show on the pandemic and recovering from it, and, of course, trying to avoid a second wave of it. I mean, all of these things are so extraordinarily important to all of our lives right now, not to mention we're 4.5 months out from a presidential election in which we will decide whether we want to continue as a free capitalist nation where everybody is given an opportunity to survive and thrive based on their own merit, or if we are going to devolve by way of Joe Biden and a Democrat Senate, and I think those two would go hand in hand. If Biden wins, they will have enough people coming out to vote to elect him, and thus more Democrat senators to take control of the Senate as well. And we would be devolving into a state of socialism, in a state of government dependency for everything, from health care to housing to meals, etc., to political correctness unlike anything you've ever experienced, to the point where the dictionary begins to shrink, a la 1984. If you recall the movie or the book, obviously the book came first, it was 1947, but in 1984 they made a film version of Orwell's 1984. And it just so happens, not kidding, swear on my children that last night one of those children and I, my 18-year-old daughter, and I watched 1984 because it was on, I don't know, some cable station about 3 weeks ago, and I DVR'd it because I knew she had read it and I had read it, and I had in fact taught it when I back in my another life when I was an English teacher. And so we watched watched the movie based on the book. And it was an amazing thing to see them talking about the goal of shrinking the dictionary, getting rid of more and more words that were considered to be unnecessary, that were considered to be non-favorable to the party. And I bring this up, of course, because this is what would become of the United States. If you aren't watching what's going on right now, you're not paying attention. They are shrinking our vocabulary. They are shrinking our language. The things that we can say are no longer free. The First Amendment no longer applies, not in total. There was a time when our founders envisioned and when they wrote the Bill of Rights that everything that we say would be protected. And most importantly, even the things that we say that people don't like. That's the reason for the First Amendment. First Amendment wasn't written to protect flowery speech that everybody agrees with. Who needs an amendment for that? The First Amendment was written to protect speech that other people find offensive. To say you can't be jailed for that. You can't be fired for that. You can't be punished for that. You can't be silenced for saying that. And that's exactly what's happening right now today. If you are not part of the newspeak, and there is that's the term, obviously, for what Orwell saw and foresaw in 1984. Orwell was right on. It was just 35 years early, his prediction. Here we are, 36 years early. Here we are. It's newspeak, and it's happening. They're wiping out things we can say that we used to say. They're wiping out things you can see that you used to see, whether they be images on a box of rice or a bottle of syrup or on any other of a host of products, whether it's statues in town halls or in public squares. The things that you can see, like movies, like Gone with the Wind, things that you used to be able to see, you're not going to be able to see anymore. They're shrinking what is, and they're replacing it with what they want. And friends, if you don't understand the danger of that, then we've got a lot of conversation to have with one another. And I intend to have that. Part of that conversation, by the way, is coming up, as I mentioned, at about 34 past the hour, about 7 minutes from now. We're going to talk to the former Heisman Trophy winner and now current police supporter, essentially law enforcement supporter and advocate, Herschel Walker. Because Herschel Walker says, you know what? To all of the people who want to abolish the police and want to defund the police, why don't you go ahead and hop a flight? I'll make the arrangements for you to go to a country where the police don't exist. And then let us know how you like that. And we'll talk about that, but I'll say this before we get there. You might not have to go to a foreign country to see what it's like without police. I'd like to take this opportunity, speaking to 2 million people or more around the nation right now, to say congratulations to the people of Atlanta and to the leadership of Atlanta. You have successfully abolished your police force. No, you might not have thought it was going to come the way that it is, but you've done it because Atlanta police have left the job. The mayor of Atlanta has acknowledged that police officers are skipping entire shifts. The Atlanta police have had enough, and they have walked out. So congratulations. You didn't want police, and you've got it. So here's what I want from you. Come Monday morning, would you please report to us and let us know how that worked out for you over the weekend? A weekend without cops in Atlanta, Georgia. Would you let us know how that goes? If there are any survivors, we will want to hear from you. My name is Bob France, coming to you live from Cleveland, Ohio. By way of Southern California, in for the Sage, Larry Elder, Herschel Walker will join me next.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
What happens if there's a criminal out there with a gun and starts shooting people? Who's going to respond if there's no police force?
Look, it is our top priority to keep every single member of our community safe. And if you look back at the last 150 years of our police department, it is becoming increasingly clear that that model of policing isn't working. So we need to invite in our whole community, the 9 members of the city council that came from every corner of our city to stand together to make this commitment. We don't have all the answers. And what we committed to was a community process to help reimagine public safety.
Stop for a second. This is just babble. This is just incoherent babble. I have been to Minnesota and to Minneapolis scores of times. It's just nuts. I don't know how Minneapolis elected a nutty city council that made this nutty person their city council president. But the idea that after 150 years, the Minnesota Police Department has to be defunded, that's nuts. This is the Democratic Party. This is Lisa Bender, Democrat, Minnesota Democrat Farm Labor Party, cut number 18.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night, my home is broken into? Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean...
It's insane. The Democratic Party is insane.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Hey, folks, welcome back. I'm talking to Charlie Kirk. Charlie, one of the most disturbing things I've seen recently is some of these activists who are clearly bullies. I mean, there's a violence. You can feel it, that they're very angry and they're approaching strangers on the street and demanding that these strangers take a knee or that the cops take a knee. And I just think I've never seen anything so ugly that cops are being yelled at to take a knee. I mean, they should say, well, I'll take a knee if you take a knee for Jesus Christ. You go first.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point, and I'm going to use it, which is, these are people that won't kneel for God, but they'll kneel because of some sort of pre-described class guilt. And so this is a really important point, Eric, which is this whole idea of white privilege is a racist and sinister lie that is taught to our kids from a very, very young age. And I find the whole idea morally reprehensible, that your identity, your skin color, that's not even your identity, by the way, that's just your appearance. Let's just make that very clear. That identity actually can mean a lot more. It could be your thoughts, your feelings, your worldview. And actually what has made the West so different, which was an idea that Jesus talked about, and people don't recognize this, is that equality under the law was nowhere to be seen. I mean, the Roman Republic paled in comparison to the Christian ethic. When Christ said, no, you're all equal under the eyes of God. We just forget and we just throw that all out in our society. That's why Trump holding up that Bible was so significant.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. America has been doing some soul searching lately. Perhaps you noticed. We're examining what's right with America and what can be made better. No other country does this kind of introspection better than us. Some of what we found we don't like and will change. Every life has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. That includes our law enforcement as well as every skin color. We've been through this before in America.
And my next guest, or my first guest on this program, knows a thing or two about hard work. First of all, welcome back. It's 34 minutes past the hour. Bob France sitting in for the sage of South Central, Larry Elder. This is just a kind of an honor for me. It's, I'm just a straight up fan. Have been since my high school years when I watched Herschel Walker win the Heisman Trophy in 1982 at the University of Georgia. And here we are, 38 years later or so, still regarded as one of the top 3 or 4 running backs in the history of college football. But his life is about a lot more important things right now. And he joins us now to talk about that here on the Larry Elder Show. Herschel, it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to one of my football idols. How are you, sir? Okay, I'm not able to hear Herschel. I'm not sure if he heard me. Can we?
Yes, I can hear you. How you guys doing? Y'all doing all right?
We are doing great, Herschel. Thank you. I can hear you fine now. Yeah, this is it's funny, Herschel. I literally was having a conversation with somebody about this a week and a half ago. I don't remember how it came up, but we were talking about Barry Sanders and the name Barry Sanders, Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker, Tony Dorsett are the 4 names that are always in every conversation with my football-loving friends and I about the greatest college football running backs of all time. You have stood the test of time, my friend. Do you think about that stuff from in this stage of your life?
Well, I don't think about it that much, but I'm honored to be among those great guys. They're wonderful people, they're wonderful guys, and there were so many great running backs. I think I was just privileged to be at a university that decided that we were going to run the ball no matter what. I tell everyone, it can be 3rd down and 15, and we're running a tall sweep, so that gave me an opportunity to go out and run the ball a great deal.
Well, Herschel, I'm pretty sure that wasn't just the offensive game plan, and whoever the tailback is, they were going to run it on 3rd and 15. I think they probably did that because they had Herschel Walker dotting the I in that backfield. I don't know if they would have done that for anybody else. It was a treat watching you play, and I really appreciate you coming on. Herschel,
well, no, you're very welcome, and thank you guys for having me on. I tell you what, Mr. Elder, I've watched him many times, and I respect what he does and what he says, and it's an honor for me to be on the show.
Well, I really appreciate that, and I respect you coming on with me. I know he would love to have you back on himself when he gets back in the chair. He's, Herschel here, this is perfect because you know where Larry is tonight. He's in Dallas doing a premiere with our one of our Salem stations down there of his new movie called Uncle Tom, which is about, of course, the plight of the African-American conservative in the United States and how difficult it is to express support for conservative ideas and ideals and to express support for perhaps a Republican president like Donald Trump without being called an Uncle Tom and a whole host of other terrible things, from the black community. I'm going to ask you outright. You have been critical of some of the things that are going on right now with respect to rioting and people calling for the abolition of police departments. You are a player for Donald Trump's team in the USFL, and I know you've been a longtime friend of his. Do you face the same kind of Uncle Tom type of insults that Larry is talking about in his movie?
No, I do. I face it a lot, but, truth hurts sometimes. And, I'm not going to sway my beliefs just because someone else may not believe what I believe. And I think that's what's great about America. And that's the reason I'm going to defend America and the beliefs of America as much as I can. Can I say that everything here in America is right? No, I can't. But what I can say is this is the best country in the world, and I'm going to defend what we have right now. And the only way we can make it better is to defend this and to go from here. I don't think we take 2 steps back to go forward because that's what we're doing right now.
I think that's very well said. And, our policing, and that's what this is all about, I think, right now. I'll tell you what, Herschel, if you could, this is a short segment, unfortunately. We got to take a short time out here. I want to ask you about your tweet and about your message about law enforcement in America, but can you hold on to the other side of this time out for us so that we don't cut you short?
Yes, sir, I can.
I appreciate that. Don't call me sir. My goodness gracious. Thank you. Herschel Walker is going to stay with us here. He tweeted. I'm going to read his tweet. You can marinate on this a little bit during the break, then we'll ask him to explain it a little more. He said, I have an idea, did Herschel Walker 2 days ago. For all those people who don't want any police, I'd love to meet with American, Delta, and Southwest and make a deal to fly them to countries that don't have any police. I want them to be happy. Herschel Walker will explain that next.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The 5-minute campaign strategy as of today, would it be spend all your time, resources, energy, and policy on PA and Wisconsin?
Well, it is not going to be that simple because the Democrats are going to be attempting to, go after Arizona. They've signaled that if they win Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, he's Biden's president of the United States. They're going to go after Florida because it's perennially close. They're going to have to make a decision about North Carolina. Are they going to go there? They're thinking they want to try and do Georgia, but they may not have the resources. So the problem is you can't just simply say, okay, I'm going to put all my chips on, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania because they're going to have to be playing defense in these other states. Now, the advantage that Trump has is that he's got more resources and he's got a bigger, better digital infrastructure, which will matter a lot. So, he's going to be able to play in all those states. He can play in the 3 Great Lakes states. He can play in Iowa. He can play in North Carolina. He can play in Florida. He can play in Arizona. But I'm not yet certain that the Biden campaign is going to have the resources to compete in all of those states. I mean, Florida is a $50 to $70 million proposition, and North Carolina is a $35 to $50 million proposition. So those, you start, and we haven't talked about Ohio. Isn't that interesting how Little we talk about Ohio this election.
My home state has gained its confidence under Michael DeMine. My home state is solid red. You had to worry about it in your elections, but we've got that locked up now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
If you actually care about Black lives, you have an obligation to distance yourself from Black Lives Matter, the organization, the hashtag movement, whatever it is. I want to get that out up front. But Horace, how have you been processing this?
So our group, Project 21, was actually formed in the wake of the Rodney King riots. And several of us, I'm a founding member of the organization, but several of us were watching CNN and hearing this idea that it is the normal and legitimate way that Black Americans express their frustrations with civic life, that they run into the nearest Best Buy and grab as many DVD players as they can. And we knew, I knew this, my associates that I grew up with, and it turns out people from all walks of life knew that this is so far from reality. And we decided to form an organization that would say, we're Black Americans, and we want people to understand that this universal vision or perspective that's being put forward on the mainstream media about who Black Americans are doesn't represent or reflect the reality. And we are going to start having people that will appear on the news, appear in print, appear on the radio waves saying, hey, wait a second. There's a different perspective. When Martin Luther King said that people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, we were astonished to hear that what people were saying is okay to say.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube.
Not here. He's in Dallas premiering the movie Uncle Tom. I come to you live from Cleveland, Ohio, by way of Southern California. My name is Bob France, AM 1420. The Answer is the home base in Cleveland. We are joined now by, once again, one of the greats in college football history and one of the great athletes, period, by the way. I wish I could talk to Herschel Walker about his MMA career and everything else he's done in his amazing life. But for now, we're talking about law enforcement in America, and Herschel Walker has been kind enough to stay with us. So, Herschel, I read your tweet before the break, and just to remind people, you essentially are telling people that if you want to live in a society without police, and this is aimed at the anarchists, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, and all of those, particularly leftists politically, all saying they want to abolish or defund the police. You want to arrange the flights. You'll talk to all of the major airlines, and we'll get you opportunities to fly to countries where their rule of law doesn't exist and where law enforcement doesn't exist. That's a pretty strong statement. What were you really trying to say?
Well, what I was saying is the United States of America was born on laws. And I think that's the only way we can advance is to continue to have law and order. And I think anyone that don't believe in that, why don't we send them to these countries that you can do whatever you want to do? That they may have police officers, but the police officers are ran by the government. They're not ran by laws. They're ran by these crooked societies. Right now, I love America. I'm not saying it's the best thing in the world, but we got ways to go, but we can get there. But we can't get there by breaking the law. We can't get there by going against the law. All police officers are not bad. All African Americans are not bad. Not all Caucasian not bad. Not all Hispanics are bad. And I'm tired of people not wanting to know the truth. The truth is that we have a problem. There was a terrible, terrible situation in Minnesota. Everyone know that. But right now, rioting, all of the protesting that's been going on, that's been unlawful, is not correct, is not right. What is happening in Seattle is not right. And I think for any leader to continue to say it's right shouldn't be a leader, because what he's doing now, he's caving into the pressure. You can't cave into the pressure. You got to continue to do what is right, and that's the only thing you can do.
The situation we referenced, of course, George Floyd's death in Minnesota was indefensible. And here's the thing, Herschel, I don't know anyone, black or white or any other shade in between, that has ever defended the officer in that case. We are all united in our condemnation of the death of George Floyd. Why do you suppose, rather than everybody unifying black hand in white hand over that terrible thing, as we all condemn and call for justice to be done there, why did it instead splinter into black and white, division and quite frankly, hatred that we are seeing right now?
Well, I think it had a lot to do with political than it does just that, because let's be honest here, and I point fingers at a lot of our leaders in Washington. Let's be honest here. This situation didn't just evolve just over the George Floyd situation. This Black Lives Matter has been going on for a while. You remember Kaepernick, this happened a long time, a year and a half ago with him, and Congress was going to do so much. They were going to do so much where nothing ever happens. This thing been going on for a long time before the president got in office. Well, right now, they don't like this president, so anything that they can bring up that they can blame the president for, they're going to bring it up. But I'm here to tell you, everyone in America, the honest truth. What we have to do is we have to make people accountable, make businesses accountable for what they say. I'm tired of them thinking they can give out money and everything is okay. Giving out money doesn't solve a problem. You don't give a guy a fish, you teach him to fish. And I think that's what we got to do. We got to quit thinking that someone can break the law and because he's African American, let's do this here. No, what happened to George Floyd was wrong. So I think we need to have swift justice, but the justice has to be fair. What happened in Atlanta was wrong. We have swift justice, but the justice have to be fair. And I think that's how we lead on from there. We don't just go out and just throw everything away, forget about where we've come from, and start from the bottom to build up. Because think about this. All those people that are rioting in Seattle now, when everything is said and done, I guarantee they're going to pick themselves up and go home, meaning they're going to leave that neighborhood and go back to where they live, but they're going to leave that neighborhood in turmoil. So think about that. And I think that's what the people need to think about. Who lives in that neighborhood that's causing all those problems? Is it the people that live there, or is it someone from outside?
Herschel Walker, last question for you because we're short on time. You brought up politics in all of this, and you said they don't like this president, so they're going to do everything they can to make things hard, including what's going on now. You tweeted last week about another subject. You said someone informed Joe Biden not to compare the death of Dr. King and George Floyd. He's been in office a very long time, and not once has he tried to change anything for black lives. Look at his voting records. It sounds like you're not a Joe Biden fan. So how do you feel when Joe Biden says if you're not a Joe Biden fan, you're not black?
Well, I think it's insulting, and I'm not going to say I'm not his fan. I respect him. He's a guy that he believes what he believes, and that's what's great about America. He has the right to believe that. But let's be honest. Former Vice President Joe Biden has been a senator for years. He has been a vice president for 8 years. What has he done for African America? And you think about a lot of other people that's in office. I'm not going to call their name. They've been there for years. But what have they done to change what is happening right now? And that's the reason I said, guys, I like to be a leader. You know what? If I was Donald Trump, I would call out people, too, that don't want to help me to change things, because when you get to Washington, the same old thing goes on. What are they going to do now? They're going to have a couple of hearings. We're going to have a couple of hearings, and you have these big companies that will give a couple of monies to these certain groups, and we go on from there. But do we solve anything? No, we don't. Well, I think this is time we start solving things, holding people accountable, and putting things in place that can change things. That's the only way it's going to change.
As you mentioned wanting to be a leader, and you are, but have you ever thought about taking the next step and running for office?
Well, that's one of the things I told people I would never do is run for office, because I don't want to get to Washington and do what some of the same people are doing, to get there and they cave into the pressure. I want to be on the outside saying, I'm going to keep pushing for you to change. That if you're not going to do what your job you come there to do, you need to get out. I told someone this, AOC from New York, I may disagree with what she stands for, but she has the right to be there. And she's making a change for what she wants.
That's exactly right. Herschel Walker, listen, my friend, I've got to go because we're out of time, but I appreciate you very much. Thank you for the time, Herschel Walker. We'll be right back. Please apologize to him for me for the abruptness of the end.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
By the way, if nobody ends up seriously ill, let alone dead, from all of the rioting and protesting of the last week, will you finally realize that how evil the continuation of lockdown is and the destroying of businesses? The scientists that have led us to this hysteria should have their names implanted in people's minds as destroyers of society. I knew it from the beginning, the hysteria. There's been hysteria over COVID. There's hysteria over police brutality. COVID exists, police brutality exists, but it doesn't mean that the reactions are coherent. So anyway, Biden said in the middle of this address, just happened to catch it, something to the effect, this is the new line. We need to live in America where a black person does not fear that he will be killed that day. Is he speaking about the inner city and killed by a fellow black? No, he's not speaking about that. He's talking about the police. That's the point. There is such a fear in the inner city. Funny, if you talk about where blacks really are suffering, you're a racist. If you talk about blacks where they're really not suffering, where it's minimal, then you're pro-black. Because the issue isn't black-white. The issue is right-left.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. If anybody doubted how strong America is, look at all we've been through in the past few months and understand why we're still standing. We're still standing because we believe in the bonds that bring us together. We believe in freedom and liberty. And we believe that after all we've been through, nothing can defeat us. So let's cheer as America gets ready to rebuild and remake our lives bigger, stronger, better than ever before. Keep it here to find out how. We are the answer. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Welcome back to the Larry Elder Show.
One thing I did not agree with him on, though, and I didn't have a chance, obviously, to get into too much, he said what happened in Atlanta was wrong. Now, maybe he meant the Ahmaud Arbery situation in which, two non-police officers, but two white males, chased down Arbery thinking he was a burglary suspect or breaking and entering suspect or something, and confronted him, and obviously led to a shotgun death of the African American. That's a different story. That's terribly, terribly wrong. I hope he wasn't talking about Rayshard Brooks being wrong, because that's a situation where we would have a long discussion. If you did not hear this already, and I'm sure you did last night, probably with Larry, the district attorney who charged Garrett Rolfe with murder, felony murder, among 11 total charges in the shooting of Rayshard Brooks after the confrontation in the Wendy's parking lot, the Wendy's drive-thru line where he fell asleep. And then, of course, about 40 minutes of pleasantries and joviality and sobriety tests and everything else all went out the window when he decided to hit the officers, steal their taser, flee from them, turn around and fire the taser. That DA said that the reason the murder charge is there is because the officer should not have felt like he was in danger for his life. This was not a deadly force incident. That's what he said. But the same district attorney 2 weeks ago, when charging police officers with aggravated assault for using a taser on protesters and rioters, said this.
And charged with aggravated assault of Ms. Pilgrim, and this is for pointing a taser at Mrs. Pilgrim. And as many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law.
A taser is a deadly weapon under Georgia law, but apparently not when it's being pointed at a cop. Then he doesn't have any reason to feel like it's a deadly weapon at all. Why would he respond with use of his own deadly weapon? That's a problem that we'll discuss, among many other things, when we come right back. Hour number 2 on the way. Bob France sitting in for Larry Elder, 888-971-SAGE. Please dial us up, 888-971-SAGE.
You're listening to The Larry Elder Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way, on the Faith and Freedom website. So the reason why it was important for me to put that in there, Hugh, is because in 2016, when Trump promised us he would do these things, Christians were told that we were gullible for believing him. And we've now been vindicated for, on faith, let's be honest, we weren't sure he'd deliver. He'd never held an elective office. He didn't have a record as an elected official. But we didn't have much of a choice because behind door number 2 was Hillary.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
What is the current state of allowance for church attendance?
It's remarkable in different areas of the country. You have certain states who are abiding by the Constitution and deciding on a neutral basis if we're letting people to congregate, whether they're secular or religious, will do it in an even-handed fashion. But there are several states, like Nevada, that have chosen to treat churches and religious organizations worse. So you can go to a casino with hundreds or thousands of your best friends, but you can't go to church with 50 other people.
How do they answer that question?
Yeah, basically there's a couple problems. So people are familiar with these executive orders all over the country. They start by deciding on an ad hoc basis what's essential and what's not essential. And rather than putting church and spiritual things and worship in the essential category, they put it in the non-essential category, and so then they justify it by it's not a necessity for people. And I think that's something the government shouldn't be doing.
So in effect, at least in California, I would imagine, churches are on a par with nail salons. Sometimes nail salons are treated better than churches, and that's another thing that's remarkable. If you look at the way they categorize different types of uses, it seems like churches are always on the bottom end of the list, and so they'll reopen, as people know, they've done in phases. Well, they'll decide that, for example, we've had several cases where they're open bars before they're open churches, or nail salons, or, as I mentioned, casinos, or things like that. And so the way, I'm not sure how they get to the conclusion about what's necessary or not, but they're certainly putting religious worship.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Eric Metaxas Show.
For folks like you and me, this was a moment ago, especially for you. You lived through this. You were an adult.
Man, you're just going to fill up my phone, aren't you? I'm not kidding you. Welcome to the Larry Elder Show. My name is Bob France. I'm coming to you live from Cleveland, Ohio, in the painfreerelieffactor.com studios of AM 1420 The Answer. The bumper music on this show just changes me every time I host for Larry. My phone's playlist changes because I hear things like, oh, I forgot about that song. We did Grandmaster Flash for crying out loud last hour, and now that's back on my phone. Now I got to put Rick James back on my phone. Give it to me, baby. Oh, my goodness. Give it to me. Yes. Woo! Did you just drop a Ric Flair over that? Oh. Woo! You're killing me here. You're absolutely killing me. Little before we get back into the meat of the program here, just a little side conversation between myself and Sean, who's running the show. One of my local shows that I used to host here in Northeast Ohio is a different radio station of several years ago. I used to actually challenge listeners to find a song that Ric Flair couldn't improve. And I played that Ric Flair woo in the middle of or at various points in time in song after song after song after song, and I always won the bet. Ric Flair makes every song better. Woo! Even Rick James. Yes. Ric Flair improves Rick James. How does that happen? Who says there's racial disharmony in America? If Ric Flair and Rick James can collaborate and make great music together, then what do we have to worry about? Seriously. I mean, that's better than Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney and Ebony and Ivory. I mean, see, that's just outstanding. Ric Flair and Rick James. Welcome to the Larry Elder Show once again. Was it Sinatra? Well, no, who did Ebony? No, that's not. That was the older version. I think there was a newer version. I do. I think you're thinking of Joe Piscopo as Sinatra doing SNL with Stevie Wonder. That's the one. All right, let's get back onto the serious subjects here. I want to go back to Atlanta, and by the way, I want to get to your phone calls right now. I started to give the local number. 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. Want to hear from you. I want you to tell me that there is systemic racism in America here on Juneteenth, as Larry Elder is down in Dallas having a special premiere of his movie Uncle Tom, working with our good friend Mark Davis down there and the Salem station down in Dallas. I want to, on this Juneteenth, have this discussion for him and with you. You tell me and explain to me the systemic racism in America and the white privilege in America that should have us in the state of affairs we are right now. When white America universally condemned the officer in Minneapolis, along with black America and every other shade of America in between, we all said, we're together. That's bull. That's terrible. Charge him with murder. Convict him. That can't happen. And weed out other bad cops like him from the awesome police forces around the country. Didn't we all say that? Of course we did. Tell me how that should have led us to tearing down statues, tearing down George Washington statues, tearing down... Here, how about this? This is something that happened while I was doing the interview with Herschel Walker last hour, and I didn't want to bring it up in front of him, or with him, rather, because we were on a different plane there, but Charlie Kirk tweeted something from Turning Point USA, tweeted something that I didn't see until my interview with Herschel. And this is what he tweeted. Today is Juneteenth, celebrating the end of slavery in the United States. This was made possible thanks to Republican President Abraham Lincoln. Today, Democrats are trying to tear down his statue. Think about that for just a moment. And oh, by the way, his monument, the monument to Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator, the monument has been defaced. All in the name of what? Racial justice? This is the guy, Abraham Lincoln, who put it all on the line to end slavery, who signed the executive order called the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862 that took effect in January 1st of 1863, but didn't reach all states, including some slaveholding states like Texas until 1865, the end of the Civil War, and even after the Civil War. That's why they celebrate Juneteenth as on June 19th, because that's when some of them learned that they were free. So, at any rate, Abraham Lincoln made that possible. The deaths of hundreds of thousands of white Americans, they died in order to end slavery, in order to bring about equality and freedom for all men in the Civil War, and obviously millions since then. And yet they're defacing his statue. They're defacing war monuments to African-American companies, African-American military companies, soldiers. They're defacing those, saying somehow that stands for white supremacy. These are African-Americans. Right, so somebody's going to have to explain this to me in a way that I can understand. In the same way that I want you to explain to me how, as I said before, the district attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, who charged Garrett Rolfe with murder of Rayshard Brooks, saying that Rayshard Brooks firing a taser at him should not have made him feel as though his life was in danger, because that's not a lethal weapon, that a taser is not a deadly weapon. And many other people said, wait a second. If that taser incapacitates the officer, that person could easily come back over to him, take his gun, and then kill him or someone else. Well, we don't even need that what if anymore, because the same district attorney who charged Garrett Rolfe with murder also charged police officers 2 weeks earlier with aggravated assault. For doing what? For using a taser that he said is indeed a deadly weapon.
And charged with aggravated assault of Ms. Pilgrim, and this is for pointing a taser at Mrs. Pilgrim. And as many of you all know, under Georgia law, a taser is considered as a deadly weapon under Georgia law. And
he pointed a taser at protesters / rioters and was charged with aggravated assault because under Georgia law, a taser is considered a deadly weapon. 2 weeks later, this same district attorney said the officer did not have the right to return or to use deadly force to protect himself because the threat he faced from the taser was not deadly. Now, I'm an educated guy, but I don't know everything. Somebody educate me on that. Somebody help me understand how a taser in the hand of an officer is a deadly weapon, and aggravated assault charges can be filed for pointing it at suspects, or in this case, rioters. A taser in the hand of an officer is a deadly weapon. A taser in the hand of a suspect who not only points it but fires it at an officer is not a deadly weapon, and thus does not require or does not make response with your own deadly weapon a reasonable action. I'm not going to be able to get that through my head until somebody can explain it to me. Seriously. Maybe if the officers dealing with the rioters had turned around and fired the taser over their shoulders at the rioters, then it would be okay and it wouldn't be as deadly. Because that's what Rayshard Brooks did. He turned and fired at the officers over his shoulder. Maybe that's the difference. So if the officer wants to use a taser in the future, turn around and fire it over your shoulder and you're good. It's not a deadly weapon then, because that's the only thing I can take from the district attorney who's charging one officer with felony murder and charged other officers for aggravated assault. One received the taser blast. The other threatened to deliver one. Somebody's going to have to make some sense of that to me. I'll be right back with your phone calls. Bob France sitting in for the sage, Larry Elder, right here on the Salem Radio Network.
All across America, The Larry Elder Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
if you actually care about Black lives, you have an obligation to distance yourself from Black Lives Matter, the organization, the hashtag movement, whatever it is. I want to get that out up front. But Horace, how have you been processing this?
So our group, Project 21, was actually formed in the wake of the Rodney King riots. And several of us, I'm a founding member of the organization, but several of us were watching CNN and hearing this idea that it is the normal and legitimate way that Black Americans express their frustrations with civic life, that they run into the nearest Best Buy and grab as many DVD players as they can. And we knew, I knew this, my associates that I grew up with, and it turns out people from all walks of life knew that this is so far from reality. And we decided to form an organization that would say, we're Black Americans, and we want people to understand that this universal vision or perspective that's being put forward on the mainstream media about who Black Americans are doesn't represent or reflect the reality. And we are going to start having people that will appear on the news, appear in print, appear on the radio waves saying, hey, wait a second. There's a different perspective. When Martin Luther King said that people would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, we were astonished to hear that what people were saying is okay to say.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
That's a good question to ask a leftist friend. Do you think, do you agree with Lincoln said that America is the last best hope of mankind or of the earth? But they would say no. Typical article I have here, The Atlantic, which produces massive amounts of nonsense by intellectuals. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's become nihilistic. We are living in a failed state. The coronavirus didn't break America. It revealed what was already broken. And this guy's a staff writer, George Packer, for The Atlantic. I invite George Packer onto the show. It's useless. It's useless. They never debate. Isn't that interesting? Why don't they debate? We would go on any of their shows, any. I remember being on CNN. Don Lemon used to invite me pretty often. And everybody else disagreed with me. I don't care. I'll go on MSNBC. But they would never come on here. And then they would never have us on there. That's the point. The self-delusion of the left that they are the world of reason. That's so amazing. We are the irrational in their eyes.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered
Call the Larry Elder Show now at 888-971-SAGE. That's 888-971-7243. Eldorado's Let Larry Know What's on Your Mind.
I'm sorry. It's 21 minutes past the hour. I'm cracking up here as I listen to that classic collaboration with Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney, because Sean, when I brought it up last segment, reminded me of the Saturday Night Live sketch. He thought that was the legitimate one with Joe Piscopo playing Sinatra and doing that song with McCartney. And the lyrics were a little bit different, and they were hilarious. And I can't get them out of my head. Just to hit you with it, I think the one that I'm thinking of was, I am black, you are white, you're as blind as a bat, I have sight. And I can't sing it, I won't do it, but oh my God, one of the best Saturday. Back when SNL used to be funny, right? And that's a minute or two ago, wasn't it? I mean, that's a long time that SNL was actually funny. We continue on the Larry Elder Show. Bob Brandt sitting in for the Sage. Peter Kirsanow of the Civil. You're not going to play it. Oh, Lord.
Okay, Steve. Let's see. Ebony and ivory, huh? Ebony and ivory. Ebony. Hey, Stevie, what the hell are we beating around the bush for? This is 1982. Let's get right to the point, huh? Here, take it from the tops. Swing it, Stevie, with a bounce, baby. You are black. I am white. Life's an Eskimo pie. Let's take a bite. That was groovy thinking, Lincoln, when you set them free. We all know cats are the same, Maine to Mexico. Good, bad guys and chicks.
I am dark and you are light.
You are blind as a bat and I have sight. Side by side you are my amigo. Negro, let's not fight.
Ebony
That's
and
good.
ivory,
Good,
just living in perfect harmony.
We're talking salt and pepper, Sammy and Dean, Stevie and me are Peachy Keen.
All right, let me ask a serious question about this now. That was Joe Piscopo and Eddie Murphy, obviously, doing the roles. Serious question. If that was new, and we weren't chuckling at the fact that it was from 1982, if that was new and aired on a spoof show, a parody show, a satire show like Saturday Night Live, or anywhere else right now, in 2020, if this was the first time we saw it, and first of all, they used the word Negro. Second of all, they literally talked about Eskimos. They don't buy records. You know, that's a race. The Eskimo people. Talked about Mexicans. That's when he used the word Negro. He said my amigo, Negro. If all of that stuff, racially hilarious in 1982, was released now, would it be racially offensive? Would it be devastating? Would there be calls for the cancellation of that show if that was brand new today? And I'm going to tell you something. I think I know the answer, but I got to tell you, this is frightening to me that there would be calls for it to be canceled in the same way that all of these other brands and products and services and names of organizations, they want to change the name of the Texas Rangers now, the baseball team. All of the stuff, they would be calling for an end to that, and I would be saying, stop. And I know Larry Elder would be saying, stop, it was funny. Sometimes it's funny to make fun of or to talk about the opposite race, especially when you're doing it together. But I believe that today, that sketch would have been marked out of bounds. Twitter would have gone nuts. Sponsors would have been targeted. The show either would have been axed or its directors, its writers, et cetera, would have been fired for it. I got to tell you, man, I'm frightened a little bit. I'm frightened by where we are. Free speech is no longer guaranteed, even if it's done in the interest of comedy. Jokes that were told back in, I'll go back to Richard Pryor. I'll go back to George Carlin. I'll go back to, heck, even into the 90s with Andrew Dice Clay. Jokes that were funny then, for crying out loud. Howard Stern has had to apologize all over the last several days for something he did in a comedy routine to make fun of Ted Danson and Whoopi Goldberg. You may recall Ted Danson donned blackface back when he was dating Whoopi Goldberg. Howard Stern did a spoof on one of his New Year's Eve specials of Ted Danson and did Ted Danson as in blackface, and now there are calls for Howard Stern and his show. Now, his is pretty big. His is pretty powerful, obviously. But he has apologized and said, I'm not like that anymore. Back then, I would do anything for a laugh. I would do anything to be controversial and to get viewers and ratings and so on, but I'm not like that anymore. He's apologized. What would happen if a Piscopo and a Murphy, or today's version thereof, more modern stars today, were to do something like what you just heard? I'm sorry. I know I neglected the phone calls in this segment. It wasn't my intention. But we played that just kind of off the cuff, and it really makes me wonder, can we laugh at ourselves anymore, or are we scared to death of being canceled? Scared of being fired, scared of having our accounts suspended on Twitter, scared of being dragged by Twitter, scared of having our personal lives turned upside down, etc. Can we laugh at ourselves anymore?
Larry Elder.
Can we laugh at one another anymore? Dave Chappelle's one of the funniest men alive. He makes fun of white people a lot, and I love it. Eddie Murphy did too, and I loved it. But are we allowed to love that anymore today? I don't know. Crazy. My name is Bob France. I'm sitting in for Larry Elder. If you're on hold, I'm going to ask you to stay there through our next guest, because Peter Kirsanow of the Civil Rights Commission will join us right here on the Larry Elder Show.
All true, all devastating.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
By the way, if nobody ends up seriously ill, let alone dead, from all of the rioting and protesting of the last week, will you finally realize that how evil the continuation of lockdown is and the destroying of businesses? The scientists that have led us to this hysteria should have their names implanted in people's minds as destroyers of society. I knew it from the beginning, the hysteria. There's been hysteria over COVID. There's hysteria over police brutality. COVID exists, police brutality exists, but it doesn't mean that the reactions are coherent. So anyway, Biden said in the middle of this address, just happened to catch it, something to the effect, this is the new line. We need to live in America where a black person does not fear that he will be killed that day. Is he speaking about the inner city and killed by a fellow black? No, he's not speaking about that. He's talking about the police. That's the point. There is such a fear in the inner city. Funny, if you talk about where blacks really are suffering, you're a racist. If you talk about blacks where they're really not suffering, where it's minimal, then you're pro-black. Because the issue isn't black-white. The issue is right-left.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. If anybody doubted how strong America is, look at all we've been through in the past few months and understand why we're still standing. We're still standing because we believe in the bonds that bring us together. We believe in freedom and liberty. And we believe that after all we've been through, nothing can defeat us. So let's cheer as America gets ready to rebuild and remake our lives bigger, stronger, better than ever before. Keep it here to find out how. We are the answer. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Is it of importance to us in interpreting the events of the last 2+ weeks that we are seeing all of this happen predominantly in hardcore Democrat-run cities, Gianno?
You know what's interesting about that is that Democrats won't even take credit for the fact that a lot of their policies have caused this to happen. You think about somebody like Joe Biden, who goes into George Floyd funeral with a video message talking about racial reconciliation and healing. Meanwhile, he's a big part of the reason why we have so much division in this country today. You think about the 94 crime bill. If we're going to talk about liberal cities, you can't forget about my hometown of Chicago, where you got a mayor there who provided, or rather asked for, 375 National Guardsmen in the city of Chicago and put them all in the downtown area. Meanwhile, the poor black areas on the south side and west sides are left to fend for themselves. You're talking about minority-owned businesses ruined, which they don't have money to come back. Some of these folks don't even have insurance. And that's across all American spectrums, whether you be white, black, or indifferent. We just lived through COVID. And now you got these liberals whose policies have created a huge mess from a financial tax purpose,
All across America, The Larry Elder Show.
33 minutes past the hour. Thanks again for being with us. Bob France sitting in for the Sage of South Central, who's in Dallas premiering his movie Uncle Tom. And it's a privilege to be with you. I'm coming to you live from Cleveland, Ohio. My home base is AM 1420 The Answer. That's also the home of our next guest. He is an Uncle Tom himself. Just ask him and ask those who talk about him. Peter Kirsanow is a member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. He is a Cleveland-based attorney. He's also a best-selling author. And as mentioned, he is an Uncle Tom, the likes of which, Larry is featuring in his movie, which premieres today. Peter Kirsanow, good to have you on the program. How are you?
Thanks very much, Bob. In 5 days, until we have an NFL season, I hope it's a season that honors the flag and not kneeling, and I want to congratulate Larry, as I have personally, on his movie, which I had the privilege of seeing a couple of months ago, which is outstanding, and I commend it to everybody. So, Larry notches another tremendous accomplishment onto his belt. Really amazing. I'm envious.
I am too, and I'm just very happy for him. I know it's something he worked very hard on, and we talked about it yesterday. And in fact, this morning on my program as well, he's justifiably delighted with the fact that he has this premiere tonight. And I hope everybody logs on to UncleTom.com and watches this movie, not just to help Larry, but because it's extraordinary. It's such a great view, and it is so important because of what's going on right now. Peter, let's dive right into this because it's a short first segment here in this segment of the show. I said this kind of in jest, but not really. Congratulations to the people of Atlanta. You got what you wanted. They have abolished the police there. Now, not officially by city action, but Atlanta police are walking off the job. In New York City, by the way, they're talking about a massive citywide strike on the 4th of July, on Independence Day. I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. If Atlanta does this today, tomorrow, and Sunday, and they essentially have a weekend with little to no police response, I'm kind of curious what report we're going to get from the city of Atlanta on Monday about how life is in an American city without police that they all seem to want.
I think that it'll take more time than that for the full ramifications of a city without cops is going to manifest itself. But the fact of the matter is that most people, according to all polls, think the entire endeavor with respect to abolishing police, defunding police, disrespecting police is lunatic. And it's on its face lunatic. It's so incredible. And, we're letting some Well, let's put it this way. What has happened is that a false narrative has perpetuated much of this. We've had in this country a very horrible history with respect to race. What the left, however, refuses to acknowledge is tremendous progress has been made on that score, but they seem to suggest that we're still in 1865 America. The woke kind of approach to this completely discounts the fact that the narrative that has, I think, caused much of the conflagration we've seen recently is completely false. Not just false, it is upside down. It's the opposite of what's occurring. I think everybody acknowledges that they've seen nobody, not one single person, say anything other than complete condemnation of what happened to George Floyd. Not one person. And the cops were immediately fired, and they are subject to prosecution. It was an egregious circumstance. What has happened, however, is much of the left has decided to piggyback on legitimate black grievances from the past and also to expand upon and exaggerate what's presently occurring in order to achieve a political agenda that is, frankly, the fact that they're trying to do it, given what we've seen the last few weeks, is nothing short of despicable. But they are doing it. The narrative, however, is completely false. Whereas in the past, there were a number of cases where you could look at the fact that the stats actually showed that blacks were treated disproportionately adversely with respect to law enforcement than whites. But for at least the last almost 40 years minimum, that has not been the case, but more accurately, the opposite has been the case. There's considerable data on this. On the Civil Rights Commission, we have access to this data, but almost everybody has access to the data if you're curious. Everybody's got a computer these days, and you can go to the Uniform Crime Reports. And I think almost everyone acknowledges that had this narrative that blacks are disproportionately targeted by
Peter, let me ask you to hold that thought right there because we have the hard break here. We'll come back and let you finish that thought, and then we'll find out if you need me to shine your shoes. I'll explain that next on The Larry Elder Show.
You're listening to The Larry Elder Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the
Welcome back to the Larry Elder Show.
"16 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks so much for joining us. Larry Elder is in Dallas promoting his movie Uncle Tom, and which premieres today, by the way. My name is Bob France. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and that is also where our guest is. Peter Kirsanow is a member of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. Pete, I'll talk about shining your shoes in a moment. First, finish your thought on what you were discussing about what the narrative is about policing in America and about, quite frankly, the race or the black existence in America, the reality of that, as opposed to what the narrative.
Very briefly, for the last 40 years, the narrative that currently prevails has been false. The narrative is that blacks are being disproportionately shot or attacked by cops, and that white racists, as I think it was Joy Reid said, are hunting blacks. Both those narratives are false. The data for a long time have shown this. The media is not interested in it, and the Democratic Party, but I repeat myself, is not interested in it because they need to have a uniform and robust black vote in order to have any chance of prevailing in a national election. The narrative that blacks are disproportionately shot by cops is completely false. Actually, the opposite is true. Whites are more likely, there's several studies on this, by the way. One shows that whites are slightly more likely to be shot by cops than are blacks, and another one shows it's fairly significant by a 200% margin, 200% more likely, and that's a significant statistical margin, to be shot by cops than are blacks. And one of the reasons for that is, it's just common sense, because if you saw after the Michael Brown case with Ferguson, cops don't want to go through what they saw happen to, say, Darren Wilson or what's happening down in Atlanta. So white cops are very unlikely to pull their service weapon in those circumstances. That's human nature. In fact, there are studies that show that black cops are 3.3 times more likely to shoot a black suspect than are white cops. But again, the point is whites are more likely to be shot, and that's the opposite of what's fueling all of the unrest, the riots, the protests. It's despicable that many in the media and progressives would hew to a false narrative because people are being killed, people are being hurt, and there's billions of dollars in damage, and our nation is being riven by this false narrative. 9 unarmed blacks were shot and killed by cops in 2019. 9. There were 7,200 blacks murdered that year, almost all of them murdered by other blacks. If Black Lives Matter, those lives matter also. But it seems that the media and progressives and the Democrats, but again, I repeat myself, are more concerned about driving a narrative that fosters a political agenda. That's despicable. It needs to be stopped. And it's amazing to me that more people, given the clear data on this, aren't standing up and saying this. This is necessary to protect all Americans and to stop frankly, the division that is occurring that is just so toxic to America. We are seeing America at a perilous place right now. Now, I'm optimistic. I think we're going to get beyond this. But in my lifetime, I've never seen a more significant inflection point that could go in a bad direction. Kind of, I don't want to overstate things, but we've seen these kinds of things in the past. If you study history in terms of cultural revolutions, French revolutions, and again, those are big, overwhelming revolutions with significant death totals. But nonetheless, we are losing America as a result.
Pete, we're talking with Peter Kirsanow of the United States Commission on Civil Rights. And Pete, you're 100% right. And I want to get to the bigger picture beyond the police, because this is no longer just about police brutality or the alleged narrative of police shootings of African Americans, particularly unarmed African Americans. It's now just flat out white people, you are guilty. You are guilty of making the black experience in America miserable. You have kept the black man down. You have done this, and you are all guilty. Period. And you must feel that guilt and express your repentance for that guilt before we can move on at all. Express that Black Lives Matter and show us that Black Lives Matter by doing things for us. And Pete, it's one of the most embarrassing things that I've ever seen. The CEO and founder of Chick-fil-A literally got down on bended knee to shine the shoes of an African American on a panel discussion that he was doing and said that all Christian whites should do the same. Don't just say you are not a racist. Apologize and atone for your latent racism, perhaps your inherited generational racism, by shining the shoes on your knees of a black man or woman near you. Peter Kirsanow, I love you. I love you as a brother from another mother. You're a black man, but Peter, I have never offended you. I have never done anything to harm you. I am not going to get down on my knee next to you and shine your shoes, and I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't ask me to.
Yeah, this is very troubling, and it's just one element of something that is occurring very broadly. We're tearing down statues, we're erasing histories, we're deplatforming people. This is a dangerous thing. I don't want to overstate this, but we've seen a number of parallels in history, and we should heed what has happened in the past. This is what happened in a more, not as violent a respect as what happened in the Cultural Revolution. It has many of the tones, more likely, of the French Revolution. This is not a good thing. But beyond that, it is fundamentally racist. In other words, what apparently hasn't occurred to these folks, or these kind of woke cultural warriors, is the very fact that white skin and you are being blamed for what you didn't do. As Thomas Sowell said, we're at a height of absurdity right now, where people who never did anything wrong are being blamed for something that happened in the past or shared by people who have the same skin color, but those who are doing bad things now are absolved from those things. It is a bad place to be in. I believe, however, most Americans, normal people looking at what's going on throughout America, are rejecting this, but nonetheless, we should be very vigilant as to what's going on, because we can't be certain. We've always thought the United States of America was special, and it is. But it could succumb to the same types of passions and tyrannies that we've seen throughout history.
And it could be worse than that, Pete. Pete, it could be worse than that. And I've got one more question for you on that. I've got one more timeout to take right now, though. Peter Kirsanow will wrap up this hour with us next on The Larry Elder Show.
You're listening to The Larry Elder Show.
The Mike Gallagher Show.
The mayor of New York announced back in May that the city would hire 1,000 contact tracers. They make about $60,000 a year, and they go around and make sure that they keep track of the spread of the disease. If somebody has contracted the virus, where did they go? Where have they been? Well, apparently the mayor's office has instructed these contract tracers not to ask whether anyone who has tested positive for the disease recently attended a demonstration. That's right. They are literally saying that instead they'll ask COVID positive individuals general questions to help them recall contacts, but no person, according to the mayor's spokesman, Avery Cohen, no person will be asked proactively if they attended a protest. Well, I bet you they'll be asking a bunch of Trump supporters if they go to Tulsa where they've been, huh? Insanity. Insanity. All of it has been insane.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The 5-minute campaign strategy as of today, would it be spend all your time, resources, energy, and policy on PA and Wisconsin?
Well, it's not going to be that simple because the Democrats are going to be attempting to, go after Arizona. They've signaled that if they win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, Biden's president of the United States. They're going to go after Florida because it's perennially close. They're going to have to make a decision about North Carolina. Are they going to go there? They're thinking they want to try and do Georgia, but they may not have the resources. So the problem is you can't just simply say, okay, I'm going to put all my chips on, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania because they're going to have to be playing defense in these other states. Now, the advantage that Trump has is that he's got more resources and he's got a bigger, better digital infrastructure, which will matter a lot. So, he's going to be able to play in all those states. He can play in the 3 Great Lakes states. He can play in Iowa. He can play in North Carolina. He can play in Florida. He can play in Arizona. But I'm not yet certain that the Biden campaign is going to have the resources to compete in all of those states. I mean, Florida is a $50 to $70 million proposition, and North Carolina is a $35 to $50 million proposition. So those, and we haven't talked about Ohio. Isn't that interesting how little we talk about Ohio this election?
My home state has gained its confidence under Michael DeMine. My home state is solid red. You had to worry about.
Okay, I've got just about 3.5 minutes left with our guest, Peter Kirsanow. Bob France sitting in for Larry Elder. Pete, you mentioned the statues among the other things that are being canceled and being torn down. It started out with just things having to do with the Confederacy. Take down Stonewall Jackson, take down Robert E. Lee, et cetera, et cetera. Now they're coming for the founders. Now they toppled in Portland a George Washington statue with a burning American flag over it. If they're coming for the founders' statues, Peter Kirsanow, and you're a constitutional expert, you're a constitutional scholar, and a constitutional attorney. Peter Kirsanow, if they come for the pictures of the scholars, are they then going to say we shouldn't have a country that is run by the rules laid out by these, laid out by these founders? Washington and all the other founders owned slaves. That's why they want their statues gone. If they want their statues gone, are they going to want the Constitution gone?
You're exactly right, Bob. And that's one of the reasons why we had the New York Times farcical 1619 Project, which tried to reframe, that is, to lie about the history of the United States and got everything completely wrong. The idea has been among progressives for several decades now to delegitimize the founding and the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world that had flaws, but they've been emphasizing the flaws for a reason. They truly do not like America and want a different system. they've been lying in such profound ways to unravel the founding, unravel our rule of law, and unravel the legitimacy of the United States of America so they can impose what they prefer, and that is a progressive vision, a socialist vision maybe, but who knows? It's anarchical, we know that much. But we've been lied to in such profound ways. In my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this, and I try to be as sober in terms of my assessment of these things as I can. I don't want to be hysterical or anything, but the fact is you have to look at these things plainly. We've been lied to profoundly with respect to the Russian collusion narrative. I mean, there was an attempted coup. It's an amazing thing that I'm saying that, but they attempted a coup, and the media seems not to care. Then they lied in terms of the impeachment issue. They've been lying about COVID and the lockdown, and now they're lying with respect to the false narrative that's propelling all of the riots, people being killed, billions in property damage, but more importantly is dividing America in so many ways that it's going to take a while to repair. I think we will, because we are the greatest nation. We're incredibly resilient, but we're at an inflection point, one that I think we need to be vigilant about, and I think everybody needs to be prepared to fight for the American ideal against the lunacy and the lies that we're currently seeing.
Very well said, and a very good way to wrap it. Peter Kirsanow. Peter, thanks. I know you were just on with Larry, but we can never get enough of your brilliant analysis. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks so much, Bob.
That's Peter Kirsanow. I'm Bob France, and hour number 3 of the Larry Elder Show is coming up right here on
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Join joined by an old friend. Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way, on the Faith and Freedom website. So the reason why it was important for me to put that in there, Hugh, is because in 2016, when Trump promised us he would do these things, Christians were told that we were gullible for believing him. And we've now been vindicated for, on faith, let's be honest, we weren't sure he'd deliver. He'd never held an elective office. He didn't have a record as an elected official. But we didn't have much of a choice because behind door number 2 was Hillary.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
What is the current state of allowance for church attendance?
It's remarkable in different areas of the country. You have certain states who are abiding by the Constitution and deciding on a neutral basis if we're letting people to congregate, whether they're secular or religious, will do it in an even-handed fashion. But there are several states, like Nevada, that have chosen to treat churches and religious organizations worse. So you can go to a casino with hundreds or thousands of your best friends, but you can't go to church with 50 other people.
How do they answer that question?
Yeah, basically there's a couple problems. So people are familiar with these executive orders all over the country. They start by deciding on an ad hoc basis what's essential and what's not essential. And rather than putting church and spiritual things and worship in the essential category, they put it in the non-essential category. And so then they justify it by it's not a necessity for people. And I think that's something the government shouldn't be doing.
So in effect, at least in California, I would imagine, churches are on a par with nail salons. Sometimes nail salons are treated better than churches, and that's another thing that's remarkable. If you look at the way they categorize different types of uses, it seems like churches are always on the bottom end of the list, and so they'll reopen, as people know, they've done in phases. Well, they'll decide that, for example, we've had several cases where they're open bars before they're open churches, or nail salons, or, as I mentioned, casinos, or things like that. And so the way, I'm not sure how they get to the conclusion about what's necessary or not, but they're certainly putting religious worship.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
For folks like you and me, this was a moment ago, especially for you. You lived through this. You were an adult. This was your friend. This was a student. And the parallels with what are happening in this country today are so striking. I mean, we could have talked about this book just because it's the 50th anniversary and it's a good book and it's interesting. And, you and I have met. But I mean, the parallels to what is happening right now in this country are just crazy similar. And so I do want to talk about that. Now, look, there's a lot of young people listening to this program who don't have a clue what was going on around that time. So frame it for us. In this novel, Hippies, which is based on real-life events, obviously, you just told us 2 of your friends were killed. Students were killed. I mean, I still can't get my head around this.
All right. It was good.
No, go ahead. So frame it for people who don't know anything about Kent State or whatever.
Right. Well, back then, in 1969, 1970, it was all about the Vietnam War, and the attitude of the country was changing. Like our bus baby boomers, when we were going off, we're graduating. Like when I was graduating from high school in '67, you were expected to go to Vietnam and defend the country, like our parents did, the World War II generation, and we were all for it. But then people started realizing this war was not a good war. There was no sense to it. That kids were getting killed at this.
In America, and when it premieres at a time when people are just asking what it's like or trying to describe what it's like to just be black in America, it could not be a better time for Uncle Tom. The movie Larry is premiering tonight. If you want to watch it, and I strongly encourage you to, please go to UncleTom.com. UncleTom.com. I know Larry will be forever grateful the more people who can see this extraordinarily important 2-hour movie. And I think we should all participate. Once again, Bob France live in Cleveland, Ohio, the ReliefFactor.com studios. Phone lines are now open at 888-971-SAGE. We're going to go to the phones now because I've been promising to do that, and we've had a lot of great conversations with guests instead. 888-971-7243. And don't forget to get the podcast of The Larry Elder Show as well as a host of other outstanding offerings. Make sure you log on to LarryElder.com and become an Eldorado as well. Tomorrow night, President Trump returns to the campaign trail, by the way, by way of a rally in Tulsa. We all know what's going on. They had, according to the Trump campaign, 1 million ticket requests to get into a venue that holds 19,000. That's extraordinarily bad news for the 8 to 14-point lead holding Joe Biden in the polls, because it indicates the polls aren't worth anything. It really does. I'm going to talk to his former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, about that later on in the program. He'll be joining us next half hour. But the polls show Joe Biden leading comfortably. The enthusiasm and excitement gap, however, could not be broader between Trump supporters and Joe Biden supporters. They can't wait to see him, which is exactly why the media is doing everything they can to stop that event from happening tomorrow in Tulsa. They're trying everything they can. Some are saying they're going to make sure that if it does go off, it's going to go off and it's going to embarrass Trump. It's going to harm Trump. And how are they going to do that? Well, right now, some of the president's own White House coronavirus task force, the doctors Fauci and Birx, have vocalized concerns that having 19,000 people, many without masks because it's going to be optional, in one enclosed setting in an arena in Tulsa is going to lead to a massive spike and spread of the coronavirus. My concern is, and the concern of a lot of people, isn't about the actual attendees, because I think people are smart enough to know if you're sick, you don't go to the restaurant. If you're sick, you don't go to the job. If you're sick, you don't go to the rally. If you're healthy and asymptomatic, and you're listening to the WHO and the CDC that said asymptomatic spread is very rare, then you're going to go to this event and you're going to be fine, and so is everybody else. But here's my concern, and the concern of a lot of other people. What do you think the odds are that the demonic Democrats are going to plant people in the front of those lines outside of that arena in Tulsa who are sick? Quite frankly, people who have been symptomatic, who maybe have a fever, maybe have been coughing, maybe have been sneezing, maybe have been exhibiting the signs. They're look, we know they've done this to Tea Party groups since the Tea Party started being formed. You know this is happening. It's been going on for a decade. They'll infiltrate peaceful, pro-American Tea Party rallies with people carrying Nazi swastikas and KKK hats and these kinds of things to make it look like the Tea Party is, filled with a bunch of racists and a bunch of white supremacists and so on and so forth. They will infiltrate, they will indeed place kind of double agents, if you will, in populations of conservatives in order to make those conservatives look bad. If you don't think that they're going to try to put some sick people into the crowd of 19,000, or at least into the lines of people outside, to try to spread that disease and then make it look like, every day for the next 2 weeks, more bad news from Tulsa, Oklahoma, more spike in COVID cases and so on and so forth. That's the one thing that I'm concerned about. One of many, actually. Missy is calling us from Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. on the Larry Elder Show. Missy, thank you so much for your phone call. It's Bob in for Larry. Please go right ahead.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to touch on a couple of things, if you'll let me. The first one is you asked if there was systemic and pervasive racism in the country. There absolutely is. I was a cop for 20 years, and I was called a racist no less than 200 times in my career. So it exists, but not where we're being told that it exists. Secondly, if you want to get to the root of where all this is going, this is power. This is chaos, and the Democrats are sitting back. They're sucking it all in. They're eating their popcorn, and they're enjoying it. Because here's the thing. They're not saying that there's anything wrong with what the protesters are doing. Why? Because you have the expression of your free speech. And what does Trump do? I'm sending the National Guard in to cancel things. So what are they doing? They're all for freedom and your liberty. And it's Trump who's trying to silence you and take away your rights. Okay? Now, the police. The police are horrible. Police go to work. They interact with all races, all sexes, all nationalities, all day long. No problem. Until there's a shooting, and then it becomes racist. So how do they manage to survive the 99% of the day without having any issues? But yet that one thing happens, and all of a sudden they're racist. And now it's all cops are racist. I'm not aware of any police-involved shooting where race was the reason for the shooting. And if you can tell me where it was, maybe I missed it, but I'm not aware of any. Mr. Floyd's death was disgusting, and it was despicable, and it was done by one person. The color of his skin makes that incident no more wrong than it already is. Okay?
Well, I'll tell you what, Missy.
I don't know why.
You covered a lot of ground there, and you make some very, very good points. And I want to speak specifically to one of them, and that is the part about Mr. Floyd's race. I have been waiting for somebody to show me something. This often happens in the case of, for example, shooters, like Dylan Roof, the racist, white supremacist believing piece of trash that shot up the black church. There was a manifesto kind of a thing. There were all kinds of things on his social media profile, et cetera, that indicated who he was and what he was. And so that's understandable. We call him the wild racist who shot people for their color of their skin because we knew that's exactly what he was doing. I'm looking for a manifesto. I'm looking for something in an online profile, something in an online footprint that shows to me that Derek Chauvin, the disgusting killer of George Floyd, who knelt on his neck just seemingly casually for almost 9 minutes. I'm looking for something that shows me that race was in any way, shape, or form his motivation. I'm looking, and I'm waiting for something to come out that says, well, look, there it is. And we haven't seen anything yet like that, and I want to know why that is. It could be that he's just a terrible cop and a terrible human being, and he has knelt on people like that before, maybe of other races, and maybe when there weren't cameras around. I don't know, but I'm waiting for something that says this is the reason why the black community should be outraged, because this obviously racist guy did this to a guy because he was a minority. And I'm just looking for something. And the reason I continue to look is because of the other one that a lot of people have talked about that happened a couple of years ago down in Dallas, Texas, where a police officer put his knee not on the neck, but in the back of a man named Tony. I'm going to forget his name now. But he had his knee in his back, pressing down on his torso for 14 plus minutes to the point where the guy's lungs collapsed. Tony Timpa, thank you so much. Tony Timpa, and his lungs collapsed and he died. And I couldn't even remember his name. Sean just had to tell me his name is Tony Timpa. Nobody cared. Nobody talked about it. Tony Timpa was white. An almost identical circumstance. Almost identical. Kneeling on a neck, kneeling on a back. Both of them died. Both of them couldn't breathe. And yet one of them has become the reason for an extraordinary sea change in America because of discussions of race. And the other one essentially was forgotten. That to me is a huge, huge part of the discussion that is going on in this country right now about the treatment of people based on their skin color. And the truth has got to be told. All right, quick time out. Right back with more of your phone calls after this on The Larry Elder Show.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Here's the former vice president asserting that the sitting president is going to attempt to steal the election on November 3rd. This is what he said.
It's my greatest concern, my single greatest concern. This president's going to try to steal this election. This is a guy who said that all mail-in ballots are fraudulent, direct voting by mail, while he sits behind the desk in the Oval Office and writes his mail-in ballot to vote in the primary.
That's his biggest fear, is that Donald Trump will steal the election. So here we go again with, it was Russia, right? Russia interfered with the election in 2016. Russia got Trump elected, according to the narrative that resulted in an investigation, which led to a complete rebuke of that dubious claim. But it looks like they're going to go back to it again. They're going to go back to election fraud.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynard Jackson's comments, because this came from the White House, where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. You know, I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody, and that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes he does spend a lot of time listening to advisors, listening to people who are willing to bend his ear. So here's Raynard Jackson.
But what I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, is kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to say to all the media assembled here that I wish they would quit lying about what you've done specifically for the black community. So you got radical liberal journalists like Joy Reid from MSNBC, Don Lemon from CNN, Roland Martin, who are putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer, who are killing more black folks than any white person with a sheet over their face. How are they doing it? Spreading these lies about the economy you have, Mr. President, before the virus was a continuation of Obama. That's just factually not true. I have a degree in accounting. I keep up with the economy. They're lying. So to all these folks on MSNBC, CNN, Roland Martin, what, you're afraid to have real black Republicans who know what the hell they're talking about? If you want to know the truth, if you want us to dissect the Obama economy, let's do it. And I think, Mr. President, your record will win the debate. Thank you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
By the way, if nobody ends up seriously ill, let alone dead, from all of the rioting and protesting of the last week, will you finally realize that how evil the continuation of lockdown is and the destroying of businesses? The scientists that have led us to this hysteria should have their names implanted in people's minds as destroyers of society. I knew it from the beginning, the hysteria. There's been hysteria over COVID. There's hysteria.
Little, I can't go for that 1982. This is an easy one, DJ Sean. This was an easy one. Loving that. Very well done. I can't go for that, but I can go for a good night's sleep, because Well, I'm a very happy and faithful customer of MyPillow. Hey, Bob France in for Larry Elder once again, and you know that you have helped build MyPillow into the amazing company it is today. Mike Lindell, the inventor and CEO of MyPillow, wants to give back to our listeners. And you can get great discounts right now on all MyPillow products. If you go to MyPillow.com right now and click on the radio listener specials, and you're going to see some incredible offers. Buy one, get one free on a variety of the amazing products offered there, including the Supima MyPillows, the Giza Dream Sheets, MyPillow towels. I love those towels. Roll and go anywhere pillows, duvet covers, Giza pillowcases, bolster pillows, neck pillows. You name it, they've got it. And it's going to help you sleep. And plus, if you buy Mike Lindell's book, What Are the Odds? From Crack Addict to CEO, you'll get free shipping and a $25 gift card as well. So just go to MyPillow.com, enter the promo code Larry, or call 800-890-1843. Be sure to use the promo code Larry. And by the way, MyPillow is also answering the call for the face mask issue in the country. As they continue to deal with the global coronavirus pandemic, they will be making face masks for hospitals across America. I want to go right back to the phones, and we're going to talk next to, who shall it be? Boy, how about Shannon? Calling us from Shelby, North Carolina. It's Bob France sitting in for Larry Elder. It looks like I think I just disconnected Shannon. My apologies for that. We'll go up to Washington. And Dean, I wonder if this is actual Washington or if this is Chop Zone Washington. We'll find out. Hey, Dean, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, no, I'm not from Chop. I'm from the Tri-Cities, Kennewick, Washington.
Very good.
And I just wanted to say that basically when you were asking about whether there's systemic racism, I don't think there's a systemic racism problem in the police force, but there may be a systemic problem with having difficulty removing cops that are bad cops. And so basically when you have a cop that it's hard to get rid of him, because the guy in Minneapolis had a huge history of, of police brutality. And so basically, if you have a hard time getting rid of them,
that's
and then
something. If
happens,
I may, Dean, if I may just clarify, because I hear a lot of people saying that, and I feel like that's being misrepresented. Now, I have no reason or interest whatsoever in defending that guy. I think he murdered George Floyd, and I think he should go to prison the rest of his life for murdering George Floyd. But when people say he had a history of police brutality or whatever, that's not entirely accurate. What he had is a history of 17 or 19, and the story has changed a couple of times, of complaints against him. And what people don't realize that in policing, a complaint can be filed by anybody for any reason. If I arrest you and I think you're drunk and you refuse the breathalyzer, and I think you're drunk and you say you're not only can you defend yourself in court, you can file a complaint saying I was targeted, profiled, unjustly taken in and booked, et cetera, et cetera. A complaint can be filed if a suspect punches an officer and the officer punches him back in the interest of getting cuffs on him. Hey, he hit me, I'm filing a complaint. So I just wanted to be clear. It's not cut and dried that this Chauvin guy was the menace to society prior to this terrible, indefensible incident with George Floyd. We don't know.
Yeah, a lot of times we're just guilty by public opinion before you even get a chance. And don't get me wrong, I think the police officers in our nation are amazing people. I am so grateful. This whole situation of defunding the police just disgusts me, and as far as Chaz goes, man, I tell you, we, most of us people I know in Washington, we just are so tired of our inept governor and the mayor of Seattle and all of that. And we're just grateful that there are cops that are still willing to work for us after all the stuff that's been going on.
Well, that's a key. That's a big thing there. Dean, thank you. And I'm grateful to know there are people in Washington who are embarrassed by Jay Inslee and by Mayor Jenny, who thinks it's a block party down there, and they're just all having a good time in the summer of love 2020. I appreciate that. Let's go to South Carolina. This is David on the Larry Elder Show. It's Bob sitting in for Larry. David, go ahead.
How you doing?
I'm good, David.
You said earlier that you wanted to know what George Floyd's death had to do with the defacing of the statues and tearing down of the statues.
Yes, sir. Among many other things, by the way. There are a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of damage, a lot of defacing of property, of government, Capitol buildings. Here in my home state of Ohio, they're defacing the Capitol building constantly. They're attacking the Abraham Lincoln Monument, for crying out loud, in Washington, D.C. So, yeah, there's some things I would like to know what that has to do with George Floyd. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get you into the movie. Okay. First of all, the Bible said in Ecclesiastes 3rd chapter, there's a time and a season to every purpose. So what's happening now is just the seed of injustice is being harvested. Okay? So all the things that had occurred in history, in our past, in the black past, it just coming to the surface. It's growing. And what you're seeing now, is the hurt and the pain of the people. And the people that's doing the defacing of, like Abraham Lincoln, some of those people might be some of the people just riding the other group out there just to make them look bad. You got that? Some of the people
here's what I would say in response. Here's what I would say in response, my friend, and I appreciate the point that you're trying to make, and thank you for your phone call. You are, I think, what Larry talks about on a nightly basis. You're a victocrat. You are somebody who believes in the victimization lifestyle, the victimization movement. People are trying to harm me. They're trying to harm my people. They were trying to harm them a long time ago, and that is what has kept us down now. And you have no personal self-responsibility or personal accountability for where you go from here. You keep living in the victimized past rather than looking at America today. Looking at America today, which is without question and with a massive, massive gap between first and second place, America is the very best place for a person of color in this world to live. In this fundamentally, systemically racist, terrible society that everybody wants to paint this country as, it is a lie. There are people of color, blacks and browns of different types from different parts of the world, who know they will be a minority when they come to the United States, who are risking their lives to get here. And the reason for that is nowhere on this planet does a person of color have a better opportunity to live the dream. The American dream is called such for a reason, and it still is to this day. And as Herschel Walker told me in the first hour of the program, if you don't think so, let's hop a flight and fly you to one of these countries that you think is going to be better, that isn't going to have a racist police force, that isn't going to have racist policies, etc. Find a place, and what you will see when you get there is why so many people of color around the world are flocking to the United States. Don't be a victocrat, my friend. Bob France sitting in for Larry Elder. Back after this.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynard Jackson's comments because this came from the White House, where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. You know, I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody. And that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes he does spend a lot of time listening to advisors, listening to people who are willing to bend his ear. So here's Raynard Jackson.
But what I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, is kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to say to all the media assembled here that I wish they would quit lying about what you've done specifically for the black community. So you got radical liberal journalists like Joy Reid from MSNBC, Don Lemon from CNN, Roland Martin, who are putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer, who are killing more black folks than any white person with a sheet over their face. How are they doing it? Spreading these lies about the economy you have, Mr. President, before the virus. was a continuation of Obama. That's just factually not true. I have a degree in accounting. I keep up with the economy. They're lying. So to all these folks on MSNBC, CNN, Roland Martin, what, you're afraid to have real black Republicans who know what the hell they're talking about? If you want to know the truth, if you want us to dissect the Obama economy, let's do it. And I think, Mr. President, your record will win the debate. Thank you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
By the way, if nobody ends up seriously ill, let alone dead, from all of the rioting and protesting of the last week, will you finally realize that how evil the continuation of lockdown is and the destroying of businesses? The scientists that have led us to this hysteria should have their names implanted in people's minds as destroyers of society. I knew it from the beginning, the hysteria. There's been hysteria over COVID. There's hysteria over police brutality. COVID exists, police brutality exists, but it doesn't mean that the reactions are coherent. So anyway, Biden said in the middle of this address, just happened to catch it, something to the effect, this is the new line. We need to live in America where a black person does not fear that he will be killed that day. Is he speaking about the inner city and killed by a fellow black? No, he's not speaking about that. He's talking about the police. That's the point. There is such a fear in the inner city. Funny, if you talk about where blacks really are suffering, you're a racist. If you talk about blacks where they're really not suffering, where it's minimal, then you're pro-black. Because the issue isn't black-white. The issue is right-left.
Keep up with what's trending.
Yes, indeed. Welcome. My name is Bob France, sitting in once again for The Sage. 26 minutes before the top of the hour, Larry is enjoying his movie premiere of Uncle Tom in Dallas, Texas right now. He'll be back on Monday. I can't advise you strongly enough to watch Uncle Tom. You can do so at uncletom.com. 2 hours of extraordinarily important information. What it's like to be like Larry. To be black and conservative in America, to be seen by your own people as a race traitor in many circumstances, to be called exactly what the title of the movie is, Uncle Tom, and several other words that I won't say on the radio. So please make sure that you watch that. It's very, very important, especially as it pertains to the upcoming election. Speaking of which, by the way, we're going to push off our interview with Newt Gingrich. We're going to push the interview with the former speaker till the next time, because I do want to go back to the calls here. But the election, that's coming up here, I'm looking at everybody falling all over themselves around Joe Biden to say he's going to pick a woman. He already said he was going to pick a woman back in the debates, in the primaries. Now he definitely has to pick a woman of color because of all of the Black Lives Matter stuff that's going on now. He has to. So everybody's saying you have to pick a woman of color and try to advance the minorities in this country. Try to put, we've never had an African-American female candidate for vice president or president. You've got to do this, right? So all in the interest of advancing African Americans, this is why he's got to pick a black running mate, right? Yet, the same people screaming this condemn black leaders on the Republican side. They call Tim Scott a token for the Republican Party as the only black senator. They insult some of the people that Larry has in this movie as being Uncle Toms, as not being black enough, as not being real down with the cause. These aren't real black people. And so when black people try to advance themselves and elevate themselves on the wrong side of the ideological scale, well, they're traitors to their race. But Joe Biden's got to pick a black woman to advance black causes in leadership positions. It's amazing. Let's go back to the phones. We're going to talk next to, where are we going to go? How about we go to my own home state? How about Brunswick, Ohio? Don, you're on the Larry Elder Show, and this is Bob sitting in for Larry. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Bob, listen to your show in the morning. Love it. You're always hard-hitting. Hey, playing into the last conversation, and especially your response to it, today being the day that the slaves were emancipated, there were roughly 4,000 of them that were actually offered an opportunity to repatriate to Africa. There was only enough ships to repatriate 4,000. Now, if you want to compare the descendants of those 4,000 and the lifestyle that they have over there versus the ones that stayed over here in the greenest, richest, most opportunistic country on God's green earth, with incidentally, there's been a thumb on the scale for the last 56 years since the Civil Rights Act. Why aren't they more gracious and have gratitude instead of giving grievance to it? I have never been a slave owner.
I think that's a really difficult thing, Don. I think that's a really difficult thing. First of all, we're talking about the choices made by ancestors who were actually freed slaves, emancipated slaves, who were taken from their homeland, some given a chance to go back, and some not knowing what they were going to go back to, because slavery lasted hundreds of years. And unfortunately, the people who were, especially those who were born here, that's the other thing too. Not every slave was brought over from their home nation. They were born here. They were born into slavery, and they didn't have anywhere to go. They wouldn't know where to go if they wanted to. So the fact that they chose this more prosperous opportunity or whatever, I don't know that I would say they should be gracious for it rather than expressing grievance over it. I think that's a little bit unfair, to be 100% honest with you. They were forced into a situation where they had two bad choices. Live in a place where, yeah, you're emancipated, but you're still not going to be thought of, as a citizen, and still not going to be given the rights that other people have, and life is still going to be very, very difficult, even post-slavery. But if the choice is going to a place maybe that you didn't even know, you'd never been to, or you were, maybe your parents were, but you weren't, etc. I don't know. I don't think that's a fair thing to ask, to be honest with you. By the way, June 19th is not the day that the slaves were emancipated. The Emancipation Proclamation was in September of 1862, and it took effect in January 1st of 1863. The end of the Civil War in 1865, after that, is when Juneteenth was celebrated by those in Texas. But that's just a little history lesson. We'll come right back.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way, on the Faith and Freedom website. So the reason why it was important for me to put that in there, Hugh, is because in 2016, when Trump promised us he would do these things, Christians were told that we were gullible for believing him. And we've now been vindicated for, on faith, let's be honest, we weren't sure he'd deliver. He'd never held an elective office. He didn't have a record as an elected official. But we didn't have much of a choice because behind door number 2 was Hillary.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
What is the current state of allowance for church attendance?
It's remarkable in different areas of the country. You have certain states who are abiding by the Constitution and deciding on a neutral basis if we're letting people to congregate, whether they're secular or religious, will do it in an even-handed fashion. But there are several states like Nevada that
Okay, two things that I wanted, previous callers that I want to respond to something about just briefly here. Bob France again in for Larry, 16 minutes before the top of the hour and the end of the broadcast. I have two callers that said different things that I really think deserve a little bit more attention. To the caller from, I want to say it was South Carolina, who was trying to talk to me about hurt from the past and the role that it plays today, that sort of thing. And he was responding to my question, which was, tell me if there really is systemic racism here. Convince me of that in this country, because I do not believe there is. Are there racists in this country? Of course, just as there are in every country. And guess what? They're not all majority over minority. Racists come in all colors. I know a lot of people don't like to think that. So I said, is there systemic racism? A guy called, a very nice man, and tried to tell me, that the hurt from the past is what's behind all this. And I called him a victocrat and said, you can't just live in victimhood. Here's the point. I do understand the hurt you're talking about from the past. I do. I get it. We all get it. And we all get it when some of it rears its ugly head in the present, like it did with George Floyd. That's ugly. Still not sure it was racially motivated. Still haven't seen anything about that, but it's ugly and it happened. My response to the caller, though, I just want to elaborate a little bit on it now, would be to say that when I say don't be a victocrat, is to say this. Those hurts from the past that are real, that I believe you when you talked about feeling and hearing and so on and so forth, were not caused by modern day 2020 white people. And it's very hard for white America today to sit here and be told 24/7 from the news cycle, and kids in schools, if they're actually in schools with the COVID, but being told that white skin is evil, that white skin is is privileged, and they use that privilege to harm people with darker colored skin. That white skin means you see yourself as being better. It's called white supremacy. These things are not reality in white America today, except in the minds and the hearts of some. I said this on my own program. I truly believe that America is dominantly, really, really dominantly a colorblind society, that a great majority of white people and black people in America have no problem with one another. A great majority. I really believe that. I don't know people in my life that I could look at and say, that guy is a stone cold racist. Or no black people that say, that guy just hates white people. I mean, I think the vast majority of people in this country like each other across the racial divide. It's the very loud and very dangerous, very, very small minority of people in hate groups, or even if they're not officially affiliated with groups, but they're in, that mindset, that make it terrible for all of us. And those people do need to be marginalized, but the vast majority of America is not this terrible white oppressive society on black people that the Black Lives Matter organization is trying to exploit. They're part of the small groups that are trying to exploit it. So I just want to explain. I get the hurt that you're talking about, and I appreciate your attempt to try to explain that. I'm up against the clock there. We couldn't take it too long, but I just want you to know that it is not the responsibility of people who are white who are saying, what are you talking about? I'm not racist. Why are you telling me to shine somebody's shoes? I'm not racist. Why should I be on my knees saying, please forgive what happened 400 years ago? I didn't do it. I don't have anything to do it. And of all the black people that I know, friends, coworkers, colleagues, acquaintances, or parents of classmates, etc., of all of them, none of them I know would ask me to get on my knees and say I'm sorry for something. I don't think that's the experience any of us would have, because they're reasonable people and I'm a reasonable person. So we're trying to bring reason back to it. So I wanted to respond to that. And then the other caller that I wanted to respond to was the one from Seattle who was talking about Chaz and talking about police. They need police in Seattle and so on and so forth, disgusted by the mayor. This is making the rounds online, and I just loved it, and I wanted to share it. Here's how to handle the situation with Chaz or CHOP. You ready for this? They have established their own border, and they say that their own border means they are sovereign inside that border, which is kind of funny because they don't believe in border walls for the country, but they have it for their own little occupied zone. So here's what we do. We set up our own border around their border, our own perimeter, with wire, armed Border Patrol agents, and checkpoints. And at these checkpoints, post huge signs saying, you are now leaving CHOP and entering the United States of America. Please have passports and travel papers ready. And if they don't, deny them entry into the U.S. They have to stay in CHOP. Cut off their electricity, their water, and their sewer systems. Since they are autonomous by their own statements, they must supply their own infrastructure. If they wish to use American infrastructure, they must pay for it at international rates. They say they're their own entity. Three, place tariffs on any goods or foodstuffs that they wish to import into their autonomous zone, same as you would with any other country. 4, cut off their access to Wi-Fi and cell service. Again, since they're autonomous, they must establish their own corporations to provide these services. Let them build their own cell tower inside of CHOP, right? If they wish to use American internet and phone service, they must pay at international rates. 5, if they wish to return to the United States, they must apply for immigration, just like any other foreigner would. If they sneak into the country out of CHOP and into America, put them into detention centers and then deport them back to CHOP or Chaz. And finally, sit back and laugh when they start realizing the real world isn't like playing Sims in mommy's basement. I don't know who, I can't take credit for it. It's making the rounds online, but I loved it. You want to be in your own autonomous zone. You want to be your own country. You want to be free from the restraints of capitalism. You want to be free from the restraints of laws and law and order and taxes and all these. Fine. You stay there and we will guard to make sure that you don't come out of there. And if you want to come out of there, you will be treated like an immigrant trying to come into the United States, and you will be subject to all of the limitations thereof. Simply beautiful. Somebody needs to get that memo to Mayor Jenny. Tell her that's what we're doing, and we'll see if she's still so happy to surrender part of her city to the CHOP folks. All right, quick time out. Back with our final segment right after this on The Larry Elder Show.
now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The 5-minute campaign strategy as of today, would it be spend all your time, resources, energy, and policy on PA and Wisconsin?
Well, it's not going to be that simple because the Democrats are going to be attempting to, go after Arizona. They've signaled that if they win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, Biden's president of the United States. They're going to go after Florida because it's perennially close. They're going to have to make a decision about North Carolina. Are they going to go there? They're thinking they want to try and do Georgia, but they may not have the resources. So the problem is you can't just simply say, okay, I'm going to put all my chips on, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania because they're going to have to be playing defense in these other states. Now, the advantage that Trump has is that he's got more resources and he's got a bigger, better digital infrastructure, which will matter a lot. So, he's going to be able to play in all those states. He can play in the 3 Great Lakes states. He can play in Iowa. He can play in North Carolina. He can play in Florida. He can play in Arizona. But I'm not yet certain that the Biden campaign is going to have the resources to compete in all of those states. I mean, Florida is a $50 to $70 million proposition, and North Carolina is a $35 to $50 million proposition. So those, you start, and we haven't talked about Ohio. Isn't that interesting how little we talk about Ohio this election?
My home state has gained its confidence under Michael DeMine. My home state is solid red. You had to worry about it in your elections, but we've got that locked up now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
If you actually care about Black lives, you have an obligation to distance yourself from Black Lives Matter, the organization, the hashtag movement, whatever it is. I want to get that out up front. But Horace, how have you been processing this?
So our group, Project 21, was actually formed in the wake of the Rodney King riots. And several of us, I'm a founding member of the organization, but several of us were watching CNN and hearing this idea that it is the normal and legitimate way that Black Americans express their frustrations with civic life, that they run into the nearest Best Buy and grab as many DVD players as they can. And we knew, I knew this, my associates that I grew up with, and it turns out people from all walks of life knew that this is so far from reality. And we decided to form an organization that would say, we're Black Americans, and we want people to understand that this universal vision or perspective that's being put forward on the mainstream media
America, we have a country to save. And now, here's Larry Elder.
Working very hard to save that country tonight and every night. Bob France in for Larry Elder. I want to wrap up this show with one more phone call. And I'm going to go back to a caller that I just addressed a moment ago. I was just talking, not the Seattle one, but I was talking to the gentleman in South Carolina who was trying to explain, talking about the herd and trying to talk about some of the things that we were discussing, and I wanted to give it a little bit more of a thoughtful response. He called back, and I want to take him back so that I can let him explain just a little bit more of what he was trying to say. David in Spartanburg, South Carolina, I've got about 2 minutes for you, my friend, and I want to give them all to you. Please go right ahead.
Yes. What I tried to get you to see is that, and just listen to you talk just a few minutes ago about the message that some of the white kids are getting, maybe making them feel guilty or whatever. It's not the point about somebody trying to send a message to make the kids feel guilty. The kids just want to see the adults. See, the kids are watching us. They're watching us, and the kids know more about history than you think they know. Okay? So if the kids looking at this nation, for example, Columbus. Columbus, according to the history, genocide over 12 to 15 million Indians. And if you uphold a person like that, well, then fine and well. But don't think the kids are not looking at that. And the kids want to question us about it or you about it, your kids, the white kids, or the black. They want to say something about it, but they're afraid to because you might lash out at them. So all I'm saying is this. Let's try to listen to the children and listen to the people who are hurting now and look at the other side, and hopefully we can learn a lesson because we got two Americas and maybe three or whatever that's displayed now. So if the people and all around the world are trying to send a message, they're not sending a message just for the fun of it. It's because they are hurting. And just look at the history. Just let the history speak for itself and let the present speak for itself.
David, I'm glad you called me back. I'm glad you called me back because the message that I just heard from you, the most important takeaway from that I just heard from you, and thank you, and God bless you, sir, and I wish you nothing but the best. The message that I heard is we need to listen to each other, and he's right. Everybody who has been saying that is right. We have to listen to one another rather than attacking one another, and unfortunately, we're losing in that effort. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Thanks for everything. Thanks for listening. Thanks to the crew. Thanks to Brad and Christian and Sean. And thanks to Larry for letting me sit in. Make sure you watch Uncle Tom at UncleTom.com, Larry's brand new movie. And he'll be back on Monday. And I'll be back next week as well. So have yourself a very safe weekend. Be blessed. Bye-bye.
You're listening to The Larry Elder Show.